Welcome back to the Farmstead Forum Podcast. Today's conversation is a powerful one for anyone building a farm or homestead business with the future in mind. I'm joined by Scott and Ginger as we dive into financing your farm through the infinite banking concept, managing cash flow with intention, and planning generational wealth for future generations. Be sure to check out show notes now available on our website for resources and links mentioned in today's podcast. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Farmstead Forum Podcast, your southern hub for all things homesteading, farming, and living a more independent, God-honoring life. Today's episode is a special one because we're bringing together two incredible Farmstead Forum vendors who each serve the homesteading community in a very powerful but different way. First, you'll hear from Ginger Butts of Back to the Basics 101. Ginger and her husband, Johnny, farm their family land in Bleckley County, where they grow soft red wheat and produce real nourishing old-fashioned foods, including their famous homemade baking mixes. Ginger's business was born out of her family's journey toward healing through real nutrition, and her passion is helping families get back to the way God designed food to be: simple, nourishing, and healing. And joining us today is Scott Chapman of Chapman Financial Services, who, along with his son Zeb, helps families, farms, and businesses take back control of their finances using something called the infinite banking concept. Scott's story comes from walking through the 2008 financial crisis himself, and for over 15 years now, he's been teaching families how to build their own private family banking system, giving them more freedom, flexibility, and long-term security outside the traditional banking system. So today's conversation will cover practical tips for farmers, homesteaders, small business owners. We're going to talk about three aspects with finances that can help you. And I will discuss those three things when Scott comes on. Ginger is actually one of Scott's clients, so you'll get to hear how these two worlds, real food and real finance, come together in real life. And both Scott and Ginger were vendors at the Farmstead Forum. We're excited to continue that conversation today. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's dive into this powerful conversation about building healthier farms, stronger families, and more resilient futures. Welcome to the podcast, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Ginger, do you want to kind of start us off and talk about, I guess, why you thought you needed a financial assistance through Scott's services? Like, what made you seek out that help?
So I don't think I really was seeking it out. It seems like ever since I started walking intimately with Jesus, have had my eyes open to the systems of this world. And Ephesians 6 says we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers of the darkness of this age. And so as I started walking closer to the Lord, the first system I started questioning was the food system, and seeking the Lord in his word through that, and him leading me to a way that I could nourish my family. And then it was the school system, the educational system, and then it was the religious system, and then it was this financial system. And so it just seems like part of the journey with the Lord, him leading me just to look at the way we do things and to be curious and to ask questions. And so I met Scott a little over a year ago, and we were on the same page, and not everybody is. And so when I asked what he did and he started telling me, then I got curious, started asking more questions, and that's how I think it all got started, really. It's not like I was seeking it out. It was just another part of the journey.
Okay. So I know you recently started with Scott, right? Like in the last year.
Right.
Can you see how using his business, like his financial system, will help your business in the future, or is it already helping, do you feel?
Well, I feel like from the get-go, it's already helping because, and I don't know the nuts and bolts, so I'm just going to say what I know, which is not a whole lot, and that's a good thing we got Scott on. All I know is it makes more sense that when I need money that I'm paying myself instead of paying a bank. And so from the get-go, I feel good about that because I'm paying Ginger instead of paying a bank.
Okay, Scott, I'm going to bring you in now. So kind of explain, I guess, I've heard one of your Zoom calls, and I came away with a lot of questions, but
I'm always about like bring it to a practical application. Like, how is this going to help a homesteader, a farmer, or a small business owner? So, kind of tell us about your business, and then we'll talk about some of those application steps.
Okay, thank you, Emily. So to Ginger's point, just hearing her talk, and she was talking about how we were like-minded and on the same page. I will quickly mention a book that I mentioned to her that has nothing to do with finances or farming or anything, but it's mindset and the systems. And that book is called Outwitting the Devil, written by Napoleon Hill. And I just recommend Ginger read that book. I recommended it to her, and that Ginger, that was a mind-opening book, wasn't it? I mean, that was really something. So I recommend that to your audience because he talks in
So
that
good.
book about all those systems, right? And the book was written almost 100 years ago. That's the interesting thing. Uh, but yes, so Emily, as you said, my family and I lived through the financial crisis of 2008, the real estate bubble. And that was really a mind opening time for me. It was an eye opening time. It was an epiphany, if you will, kind of a watershed moment where I'm the type of person, I don't want to know just what happened. I want to know why it happened, especially when it directly affects me and my family in a very drastic manner, such as that did. I was in the contracting business pretty good. We were doing 5 or 6 million a year in 2007, 2008 prices. So you could fast forward to today and that'd be 10 to 12 million in revenue. So we were getting after it pretty good. And I was oblivious to all things in the systems out there. I kind of had my head in the sand as most people do. And it always takes something, to open our eyes, to wake us up. And that was my wake up call, and that for my family. And our boys were young. They're now 28 and 23. So they were obviously a lot younger. And they didn't even realize it was really going on, other than we had to make some lifestyle changes during that time. But that time in 2008, 2009 really opened my eyes. And a friend of mine gave me a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island, which is the story of the creation of the Federal
I have
Reserve
that book.
System.
I just haven't read it yet.
Yeah, it's laying right over here on my bookshelf, and I'm telling you, that was the beginning of my life change. It's a huge eye opener, and the sad thing is, what made me so mad was it all happened at Jekyll Island, Georgia, and I had no idea, and had lived 3 hours from there my entire life, and it is quite an eye opening story that should be required reading for everyone in this country to understand the financial system and the roots of where we are today. And we talk about these systems with the Federal Reserve System, is that. And so it's the same people. We talk about freedom in our food and in our health. Well, those same people that have control of those things in the medical world and the health world and the food world are the same people that have control of our financial life as well. I mean, it goes back to the 1819, early 1900s. And so once I read that book and realized that, then I found Nelson Nash's book, which is here. This is my original copy, called Becoming Your Own Banker. And I read it. A friend gave it to me. And Ginger mentioned, kind of walking in the Lord and seeking the Lord. And I always go back to Romans 12 to, be ye not conformed to the ways of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, thinking differently than the world is. And that's what Nelson Nash teaches us in that book, is to think differently. Nelson was born in Greensboro, Georgia, graduated from University of Georgia, lived most of his life in Birmingham, Alabama. But he was a huge thinker. He was a godly man. I had the privilege of knowing him personally from 2010 to 2019, and just became a great friend and mentor. But the message that he wrote in that book of teaching us the importance of taking control, of seceding from the system, in the banking and financing function in our lives, and the freedom and independence it will give us, not only for us, but for future generations of our family, is a great work that he did in that book.
You're talking about the building, like the home, I guess the market going south with the housing and building houses. My husband was caught up in that same struggle, and he switched to healthcare eventually after he went back to school. But I can see how that would cause you to rethink finances. And I guess thinking from a homesteader's perspective, or a farmer, this is where, like, I would say, let's jump into kind of application, because it's kind of It's a little bit difficult, I will admit. Like, when I was listening to the Zoom call, I was like, "Okay, I'm trying to see how all this fits together, but, like, how tell me how this is gonna help if I needed to, buy some sort of expensive equipment or take out a loan for a business venture." Could you kind of talk about how that would look if you were going to, say, buy land or buy equipment and try to finance it through the way that you're talking about?
So let's Ginger's here with us. This is we immediately put her system to work for her when she started funding it last year. I had some existing debt for her business that we immediately paid off at a commercial bank lender, normal traditional lender. So we are partnering with the strongest financial institutions in the United States of America, which are mutual life insurance companies, stronger than banks, stronger than the government, stronger than Wall Street. All those things we want to secede from anyway. We want to partner with the purest, most like us institutions, and those are mutual life insurance companies. There's only a few of them out there that have the capability and ability to do this, but we partner with them under private contract law, and we actually become owner and controller of our own banking system by doing this. Now, Nelson Nash, in writing the book, Becoming Your Own Banker, he would be quick to tell you he did not invent or create the infinite banking concept or the ability to do this. He just discovered something that had been there going back into the 1800s, had been there, the ability to do this had been there all along. So what we do is we put in place a system of, it can be one or it can be several. My family and I have about 10 of these policies in place now through the years, and it's just like a farm. You might start off with 5 acres and have aspire to get to 100 acres, but you're going to build that a little bit along. Building healthy soil doesn't come overnight. You start today knowing that you have to amend and apply to that soil over time to get it to produce what you want, how you want it to do. So same thing here. We build a system. We partner with a mutual life insurance company that has the ability to do this. We put whole life insurance policies in place that are not, hear me say this, are not traditionally structured. Yes, they have a death benefit, but we minimize that death benefit so we maximize the cash. And so we have to properly design them, properly structure them, and properly fund them. All right. And if we do that, then it gives us the benefits of immediate liquidity, growth in a tax exempt manner, and then the generational wealth perspective of it, because it is a life insurance policy that's going to provide a tax exempt death benefit to future generations. So for Ginger, an example, when we funded her policy last year, we began, I think, in was it June or July of 2025, wasn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, there was some money that went in. Now, keep in mind, we're putting money into this policy, but the life insurance company is also putting money in because we're a partner with the strongest financial entities in this country. Mutual life insurance companies share their profits with their policyholders. So the company puts interest in our money as well as dividends in our money, into our banking system. So our policy represents our banking system, and the whole idea is that banking system to grow over time. We're putting in money, the insurance company's putting in money, and our cash value and our death benefit are growing. Well, this creates a pot of liquid money that we can access for any reason without question, as long as the dollar value's there. Okay. The insurance company is not going to ask us why we're taking the policy loan. They're not going to ask us when we're going to pay it back. They're not going to dictate any terms. And Ginger knows that. We've done this. And so when she began her system last year, she's now put her second annual premium in, and created more liquidity. But we immediately paid off a loan last year. Ginger, I think it was on a camper. Is that correct? That you guys had?
It was.
Yeah. Yeah. And it had a typical interest rate, didn't it? Of typical of the day, like 8% or something like that. I think it was close to that. Well, think about it, ladies and gentlemen. When we are paying 8% interest, that money's leaving us and it's never going to benefit us ever again, right? It's gone forever. So what we're able to do now is, that's a liability. That interest is a liability. We paid off that note to that commercial lender by taking a loan from the insurance policy, from our banking system, paying it off. Now we are directing that 8% interest payment back into our system, where yes, some of that money has to go to the insurance company, but some of it's going into Ginger's system now, to where it's going to grow and compound tax exempt for the rest of her life and create more liquidity.
Before we continue, I want to remind you that all of the show notes and resources mentioned in today's episode are available on our website at farmsteadforum.com. If you're finding value in this content, please take a moment to like this episode and subscribe to the Farmstead Forum Podcast on YouTube and Spotify. It truly helps support the show. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date on upcoming episodes, events, and everything happening with Farmstead Forum. Thanks so much for being here and for supporting this community.
Okay, so when she opened her account, was it starting an account with the mutual life insurance company? Like, for instance, this is how I'm looking at it, because I have a term life insurance policy I pay on monthly. Okay, but you're talking about a life insurance policy you can take loans out on. So is this a account that Ginger took like retirement funds and deposited into this account, so then she could use that money for loans? Or where does the money come from, I guess?
Ginger speak to that in a little bit, but there's different.
Are you putting an investment into this account to start the account, I guess is what I'm asking.
So you can do it multiple different ways. That's a great question. And this is what Zeb and I do. I'm an authorized infinite banking practitioner. So I've been doing this for 15 years, and people like me are the ones that know how to structure these policies and know how to create this system based on the client's needs and abilities at that moment in time. Okay. So policies can be built with monthly money going in. Somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, Scott, I've got $500 a month or $5,000 a month." Doesn't matter, whatever their ability is at that point in time, we can build that system that way. But for Ginger, it was a situation where there was some inheritance money that she had, that she was looking for something prudent and wise to do with it. And she found we met each other and we began to talk. And so it was kind of a windfall for her, so it was money that she had coming from an inheritance and looking, like I said, for something to do. And so we were able to begin, and that's the money we're using to fund this with. So it can come from different places. We have clients in all walks of life. We have business owners that are putting in really big numbers every month or every year. And then we have mom and dad, that are trying to do better for their family, that are just getting started. Because there again, if I want a 50-acre farm and I don't start with the 1 acre, I'm never going to get to the 50 acres if one is all I can afford to do right now, right?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Ginger, do you want to add anything to what he said?
Well, I had forgotten that there was money coming in and I knew it. And it's like, okay, Lord, what do I do with this? Like, what is the best way to optimize this? And the best I could come up with was CDs. And then enter Scott Chapman, and so the conversation started, and I did a comparative thing. And in that book, Be Your Own Banker, I think it even compares CDs versus doing it a different way. And so I wanted to understand it all, but I couldn't. And so it made sense. And I did feel led, because I don't believe anything's a coincidence, So I called Scott and we talked hours every time. And I had so many questions and couldn't wrap my head all around it. But, the best I could is like, I think this is the better option, the better way to optimize what I have. And so I have real peace with it. I feel real good about it.
So let's say if for a farm business owner, if they had a loan need and they wanted to start, they didn't want to take the loan out from a bank and they wanted to do the infinite banking concept, would they need to then bring money to the table? So like from a retirement account or an inheritance money they would need to bring something to invest into that account, then they could borrow against it?
Yes, Emily, you are correct. So yes, it requires discretionary income or windfall money or whatever, wherever that funding is coming from. So yes, you have to bring something to the table, and this is a continuing thing. You're continuing to put money in to build that banking system. The insurance company's continuing to put money in to build that banking system. But yes, I mean, we're not creating money from thin air or whatever. We're starting a
Right.
business. Just think about it like starting that farming operation. It requires money to start that farming operation business. It requires money to start your banking business.
That makes sense. Okay. So how do y'all manage that cash flow?
Well, I go back to what Ginger's doing. So Ginger, when we started your system last year, no buzzer started buzzing and no light started flashing. There was no magic that was happening there. It was not something that was sizzling and sexy, I call it. This was just something that Ginger said, okay, I get it. I like it. I want to take control and ownership of the banking function, for me and my family. And they like the idea of seceding from that commercial banking system, and no longer having to be a customer, but being an owner. So we set it up, and it's simple as this. We had a immediate cash value. She had a loan that we could pay off that made sense because we could capture the interest dollars. We could turn that liability into an asset. So that's a cool thing to think about, is turning liabilities literally into assets so that they're making us money, because we're going to be an honest banker, meaning that if I'm willing to pay the commercial bank 8%, I better be willing to pay the Butts family or the Faulkner family bank 8%, which is, if it's you guys and it's your own money, value your money like you do the bank's money. So a couple of weeks after we got started, we took a policy loan, and it was simple. Signed one document. A few days later, the money's in her account. No questions asked from the life insurance company. And Ginger, then you paid that loan off, didn't you, at the commercial bank, right?
Sure did.
Yep. And ever since then, Ginger's been making monthly payments into her own system. And just today, I sent her an email this morning, because we had a conversation on Friday, that it was time to take the extra interest dollars that she would have been sending to the commercial bank, and to increase the size of her personal banking system with that money. So we're in the process of making that happen. So the interest dollars that were a liability to her, to the commercial bank, are now becoming a literal monetary asset to her in her own banking system. And we manage it. It's really simple to do. There's not a lot of moving parts and pieces. It's kind of like riding a bicycle. It looks oh so difficult when you're 5 years old and you've never ridden one. But once you get on it, it becomes the easiest thing in the world to do. And there again, that's what Zeb and I do. We are your coaches. We are your helper. We're right here guiding our clients, and we work with clients all over the United States. And this is what we do every day.
Can you speak to a little bit more about how, like, one of the goals of the company is building long-term generational wealth? Can you speak to that and how that looks for a business owner, or potentially just a farmer?
Yeah, so I would think that anybody who is homesteading is doing so, like I said, to gain independence and freedom from a system that's out there that wants control of your food and your health, because it's big money for them. Same thing, we're gaining independence and freedom from a financial system that wants control of our money, because it's big money for them. Okay. So we're wanting to turn it into money for us. Now, what's happened in this country is that over the last few generations, we have stopped thinking multi-generationally. We no longer think several generations ahead as middle America. We kind of begin to focus on the here and now. I call it the effect of the microwave oven and the fast food. It's instant gratification, not delayed gratification. And it's the difference of cooking something in the microwave in 30 seconds or cooking it in the oven in 3 hours. And so we've forgotten about thinking about our children and our grandchildren and our great grandchildren. So let's go back to those families that I didn't mention names of, that I'm going to mention now, because they're in control of health care, they're in control of food, they're in control of our money. Rockefeller, Morgan, Rothschild. Any of those names sound familiar to you guys? Okay. They're the same people that were at
Yes.
Jekyll Island, Georgia. They were at Jekyll Island, Georgia in 1910, creating the Federal Reserve System, you know? So we are teaching people what they know. The reason we know the names Rockefeller, Morgan, and Rothschild and all those today is because they think generations ahead. They plan 2 to 3 generations ahead, where middle America, we're like hamsters on a wheel. All we can focus on is here and now. And so through the infinite banking concept, what Nelson Nash taught us was Nelson graduated from the University of Georgia in 1952 with a forestry degree. Okay. And for a number of years, he practiced forestry. Well, a forester learns how to think long range, because if you plant a pine tree today, it's 25 years before you harvest that pine tree. Right. So you have to think long range. So Nelson quickly saw that by taking control of the banking function in our life today, building this system of policies, taking liabilities and turning them into assets in a way that grows and compounds, tax exempt, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for the rest of our life, not only benefits us while we're alive, but passes on a generational wealth transfer that will become self perpetuating after a couple of generations. Now, we have to be good stewards and teach financial responsibility in doing that. I don't want to leave my kids or my grandkids a bunch of money if I've not taught them how to be wise and prudent with it. And that is my responsibility to do that. And that's what we're doing in our family. So the generational wealth transfer starts now. The harvest for me and my wife's not going to be as big as the harvest for my children, and the harvest for my grandchildren is going to get even bigger. But we're all in this as a family. We're creating a family banking system that's private, that we own and control.
I definitely like that because we have enough of the government and everyone else trying to stick their hand in our own personal business. So
No doubt.
I can definitely get on board with everything that you're saying.
And Ginger, let me
So,
ask Ginger a
Scott,
question.
go ahead.
Come on, Ginger, I know you mentioned this earlier, but when you and I first started talking a year ago, we spent a lot of time on the phone together and on Zooms together going through all this, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
We spent a number of hours. You were on some Zooms that we did for groups, but we also had a lot of individual conversations. And even after that, in doing this, you don't fully, I mean, you couldn't sit down and articulate all the moving parts and pieces of it, could you?
No, as bad as I wanted to, and as hard as I researched,
Right,
I just had to
right,
let it go, you know?
right.
But
And I
you
think,
felt comfortable with doing this, obviously. And I would say when you say you can't fully explain it or go into detail about it, it's because it's not what you do. It's what Scott does. And if you don't use it, you lose it. So, you shouldn't have to be able to explain it off the top of your head to anybody. You just say, go talk to Scott about it if you're
Yeah.
interested.
Yes.
right. And I
So,
think
Scott, if
that
someone
point,
does
Emily,
want to go ahead.
I think that point where I was going with that was, that's why it's important when we're doing this is like I said earlier, that's what Zeb and I have studied and learned how to do. But it's a mind shift, it's a mindset shift too, a paradigm shift, because we are so used to the way things have been done for generations and decades, that's what we've heard and been taught. And this is different, but it's really simple. And it's going back to the basics, just like Ginger's business, back to the basics 101. We are literally going back to the basic fundamentals of personal and family finance here, and partnering with the oldest entities in this country, who are the safest financial entities, because they survived the Great Depression. They survived all the financial debacles through the 1900s, including .com and '08, and kept right on ticking. And so it's really a basic thing to understand, but it seems difficult because it's simply not what we're used to hearing with all the financial noise out there.
So if someone wanted to talk to you further, Scott, would they reach out to you through your website, email? I can attach that in the show notes as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, our website is chapmanfinancial.net. They can go there. They can reach out to us there. But I would say a lot of people just simply call or text, or email us or whatever. And I'll be glad to give those. Like I said, I think you have them. And if you want to put them in the show notes, or if you want me to give them now, I will.
That would be fine. I'll put those in the show notes. So if you guys are interested and hearing more about this, talking to Scott about your farm business, about how to become more independent financially, feel free to schedule a Zoom call with him. And Ginger, before we hop off here in a few minutes, I was going to ask you how you did at the Farmstead Forum, because you were one of our vendors when you first walked in, and I hear that you did pretty well, but tell us what your experience was at the Farmstead Forum.
Goodness. Okay. When I first walked in, I was like, what? I'm inside. I was like, this isn't what I expected. And it's like, okay, Lord, here I am. You do you. You just do you. I'm here, whatever. And like, I'm going to get emotional because I was so touched being there. The Spirit of God was all over that place. Just being with brothers and sisters who are like minded in so many ways, in so many ways. Like, it was such a tremendous blessing. If I made nothing, I would tell you it was a tremendous blessing. That God, in His goodness, decided to bless me. And so it was such a blessing financially to be there as well, which I didn't care at that point, but He's just good like that, you know? So it was phenomenal. I enjoyed it. All the speakers and everybody just like pointing to God, and it was just lovely. I want to do it all the time. Okay.
If I had the energy, I promise I would say yes to that, but it is a lot. So it was a big ordeal having that many speakers. It was a 3-day event for me because we had the workshops and then we had the 2-day conference. So it was a huge ordeal to put it together, to talk to that many vendors, speakers, getting everything situated, all the details. But it was a blessing. I agree. I felt the Spirit was there. And we bathed that facility in prayer the week before. We prayed over the speakers at the vendors, just protection, because we had one vendor, pass away. He had a heart attack. So stuff like that had happened. And so I just felt the need to bathe that place in prayer. And I think God honored our faithfulness to do that. I also was going to say that you connected with one of our other vendors that was there, the Bougie Beef and Cattle vendor, and your products are now for sale in her shop. So tell us if people want to tell us a little bit about your products, I guess your most popular ones, and then if people want to get those in their farm store or find somewhere that you sell those in a farm store, how they can do that.
Okay. So Bougie Beef and actually Land Zen or Zenland.
Yeah, Land's End.
Yep. They chose to carry my elderberry.
And
Okay. Anyway.
yeah, they're on the square in Carrollton if
Okay.
anyone is interested, and they're on our website under the vendor list, so people can check those out.
Yeah, so elderberry is just so trendy, but the story behind mine is I was doing this almost 3 decades ago when my children were growing up, when it wasn't such a thing. And it's been effective for our family for over 2 decades. And so you don't keep doing something if it's not effective. And so I make a DIY kit to give people convenience without compromise. So there's an elderberry DIY kit at Land's End. And then Bougie Beef chose to carry 3 of my product lines, which are the homemade baking mixes from the wheat that we grow here in Middle Georgia and Cochran. And then I get the wheat milled by a grist mill. It's powered by his pond, and he mills it into flour. So it's pure, unadulterated, like you milling your own flour. And I make baking mixes from that. And then Bougie Beef has the baking mixes. They have the elderberry, and they have my ranch, taco, and Italian seasonings, which are just basically you making your own organic herbs of ranch, taco, or Italian. I did it for you. I feel like I'm one of y'all, even though I'm not. I do.
Hey, I buy that stuff. I buy the ranch mix and the taco seasoning because I don't want all the MSG and the
Right.
bioengineered food ingredients in there. So I do buy stuff. I will be purchasing from Bougie Beef all
Yeah.
your stuff. So and you also distribute to other places. I believe you make trips to Noonan or Peachtree City area.
I do.
Is there Country Gardens Farm? Do you go out there to them?
Yes, and I'm actually going Thursday to Alo Farms. And if y'all haven't been there, plug in. You absolutely need to. They're an aquaponic farm, and they're followers of Christ, and everything they do is just absolutely phenomenal, blessed, Anointed, all the things. And Country Garden Farms, they carry my product too. But my whole thing is to help people get nutrition from the source, meaning God's creation. So I make products that give you the convenience without compromise. But I have such a heart for sharing what I've learned. I think it's called teaching, but to me, it's just sharing what I've learned. So I'm starting bread baking classes, and I've got 2 this month and then 2 next month, and that's on my website. And they go quick. So if people are interested in having a whole grain lifestyle, it's just hands-on milling from the wheat berries to the baking flour to the bread.
And where is your house, or where are the classes going to be located if people
Okay.
are interested?
Right. So I don't know where everybody is that's listening, but I'm in Middle Georgia in Cochran, and we've just started a new venture, which is part of the infinity banking concept because I needed another loan. And so we have another new venture where we can provide accommodations. So when people come to my classes, and hopefully in the future to retreats or things like that, that we'll have accommodations where people can stay right here on our farm.
That's awesome. What a thing to offer.
Yeah.
Like an Airbnb type situation? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah.
Awesome.
We're dipping our toe in it. My
Yeah.
husband and I just love hospitality and love just blessing and serving people. And so this is just a way to do it. So, yeah.
Well, for city folk, or, people that are interested in homesteading, getting away for a weekend out to a farm, maybe doing a bread baking class that you can take home with you, like that is gold.
Yes.
That's a great asset to have. So very interesting. Okay. And Ginger, I'm going to put all of your socials and your website for your business as well on our show notes. I will also link those few books that were mentioned that were critical for reading to kind of start you off understanding this financial banking concept. I will put those as well linked in the show notes. I guess I will leave the floor to each of you to say a final word before we hop off. And Scott, we'll start with you.
So yeah, I would say that, as I said earlier, I'm an authorized infinite banking practitioner. This is what I do every day with people all over the country. So if you're interested, definitely reach out. Emily's going to provide the contact information in the show notes. We keep plenty of copies of this book in office and can get them to you. This is kind of like, I don't want to sound like it's the Bible, but this is kind of like the Bible to infinite banking. This is required reading. You would definitely want to read that book to get started, and then we help walk you through the process at whatever pace you want to go. But if building a family banking system is something you've never thought about, then just think about becoming an owner of the banking system, turning those liabilities into assets, teaching stewardship and financial responsibility, and building generational wealth in a tax exempt manner. And we talk about getting the government out of our life, out of our health, and out of our food. Let's get as much as we can, that same system, out of our wealth and our money, and privatize it for as much as we can. And that's exactly what the infinite banking concept teaches us and allows us to do today and for generations to come. And it's a blessing to be able to help good people and families all over this country. And Nelson Nash, one thing that I'll mention is that Nelson Nash was a very godly man, and he affirmed that to me many times. You can read in that book, you'll see it in the writings, and he used it for the right reasons.
Scott, if people want that book by Nelson Nash, Becoming Your Own Banker, do they order it from your website, or do you just offer it when people come
Yeah,
in
they can just
person?
reach out to us. They just reach out to us and say they want a copy. We'll send them a link to pay for it and get them a copy in the mail.
Okay. Okay. All right, Ginger.
Okay. I want to say 2 things. So, Emily, it took a lot of energy for you to do that, but you don't have to do it alone. And so, like, when I believe in something, I'm all in. And so I would get behind it and be part of a committee or whatever to help make it happen. So it's not all on you. And I know Cassie would too. Cassie that
Oh,
came in.
I'm definitely going to call her. She had these huge "I love Jesus" earrings. They were
Yeah.
iconic. Like, if I remembered anything about her besides her beautiful smile, it was her earrings.
She's
But
iconic.
I would love to take you up on that. So I will be in touch with you. And thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for real. Like, I'm not joking. Okay, and then the other thing I want to say is back to the Basics 101. I've been in business for 14 years, and BASICS is an acronym for Brothers and Sisters in Christ Service. And my mission statement is that when we're saved, healed, and healthy, we can have the abundant life that Jesus talks about in John 10:10. So God has brought healing to my children almost 25 years ago, to myself 11, 12 years ago, to my niece, all through nutrition. And so I believe in it, and I live it because I've experienced it. And so I'm happy and desirous to share everything, that I've learned about it. And so follow me on the socials or reach out or whatever so I can help you be healthy and well.
That's a great, I guess, comment to leave on, but I appreciate your heart and both of you for your time being here today. And if you guys have questions, I will attach their contact info, their website. Go on and support their businesses and, follow them on social media so you can stay in the loop what's going on with them. And we just thank you guys for being here today, and we look forward to possibly having you on in the future. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Thanks for having us. Take care.
Hey,
Welcome
thanks
back
for
to
listening.
Farmstead Forum
Join our Facebook
Today's
group and follow us on Instagram for the latest updates. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website for upcoming events. Ginger
For
sponsorship opportunities, reach out to us through our website. See you next time. Managing